We are ready to begin, so I'll call this meeting to order on Wednesday, August 21st of 2019 at 4 p.m. in the Water District offices. And this is the monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Auburn Water District. And we will now begin with the roll call. I forgot to do myself last time. I'm Mary Sylvester, I'm president.
Tiz Crowley, trustee.
Jason Paulina, trustee.
Robert Kavanaugh, trustee.
Casey Geiger, trustee.
Tanya Dunn, staff.
Mike Broadbent, assistant superintendent. Sid Hazelton, superintendent.
Andy Titus, City Council, Ward 3.
Dan Bellotto, treasurer and trustee.
Excellent. We will begin with the approval, consideration of an approval of last meeting minutes.
I move we accept with a few changes that I gave to Tanya. She might be able to identify the quick ones. They were primarily just added words to clarify.
Yes, we wanted to add under, a request was made to include the annual cost sharing with Lewiston on the financial report. We want to
Add the words that it said something about interlocal agreements, only those related to cost sharing was my addition. We don't need them to look at every interlocal agreement.
And there was a misspelling.
Yeah, balance.
Ballot was misspelled, that will be corrected. I put watershed representative rather than commissioner, and I'll change that to commissioner. I will add Auburn Water District Superintendent to Sid's title.
You're on page 2.
I am on page 2, excuse me, yes. And this is all under the WAPEC selection nominating committee. There, in the last sentence, will be changed to these will be public meetings.
The plural. Yep.
Yes, yeah. And under Mary Sylvester requested language for the charge to the cost sharing committee,
Yes.
not of.
Correct.
Yep.
Those are the changes I included
Yep.
in the motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? I would like to say that I have a correction, that you will notice a replacement agenda. I neglected to correctly list the section of the state statute for executive session if needed under the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission appointment section of the agenda, and made that correction when it became glaringly obvious to me. I looked at it and said, how could I have gotten that wrong? So it is now correct.
Okay.
So we're working from the corrected agenda with that section correct. We are actually in this meeting, when I look at the agenda, we're going to do 4 new things. So it's no wonder we're all on various stages of multiple learning curves. We're going to conduct an election for the commissioner appointed by this board to the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission from a group of 3 applicants. We are going to create, at least hope to create, a charge for a committee, a work group to work on the cost sharing questions. We are going to work towards the first step of implementing an approved the process we approved at the previous meeting for the first ever annual review of our superintendent. And the 4th thing we're going to do, we have done it one time in May, we're going to look at a schedule and topics for future workshops. So these are 4 important steps in the development of our work. Let us begin then with the appointment of the election for the appointment of a commissioner to the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission. And the group met in 2 meetings. There are minutes from the first meeting.
Can I ask a question real quick before
Certainly.
we get started into this? Because I know you wanted to kind of mirror what the council uses for a process when it comes to these sort of appointments. And what would normally happen is that the nominating committee would come up with a person or whatever, and anybody had a problem with the selection process, we went into executive session to discuss it.
Right,
So
now.
if we're gonna talk about the committee, then the nomination, I think unless anybody has any problem with the committee's,
Well, as a matter of fact,
idea,
that's, we got
then
our.
we need to go to executive
Our
session.
legal counsel gave us some slightly different advice. So I'm happy to provide a copy of his email, but here's the process that was developed and supported by legal counsel with questions that arose throughout it. The nominating committee has made a recommendation, it's in their second meeting, after first thinking that perhaps the process that we had approved in May, or June rather, would permit, multiple applicants to be forwarded. Legal counsel advised us that that in fact was not the, process that had been approved, that the nominating committee needed to forward a name. And therefore, they met a second time and have a report that you will see in which they do have a nomination. And so upon, their minutes are in the packet. Tiz has made some corrections to the
Which I
minutes.
don't know if that came.
It did,
Yeah.
and I've got those, I think, to distribute for people. But then there will be a nomination that comes from the nominating committee, and we will vote to accept or not accept, vote for that nomination.
Before an
No.
executive
Executive
session.
session is
That's opposite to
only
what
if
you
it
said.
needed.
That's opposite of what we just discussed and was documented.
Well, maybe I didn't say it correctly. There's minutes of the nominating
Right.
committee,
Right,
and that embeds a nominee.
right.
So someone will need to make a motion to nominate the nomination committees.
Correct, and then at
Or
that point.
anybody else.
Or anybody else,
Or
and then at
anybody.
that point, if
Right,
somebody
or
needs to go into
anybody
executive
else.
session, they can at that point.
And then there needs to be
Before
a
the vote.
second. That's correct, I'm sorry.
Before there's
It's-
any votes.
It's good to
Right.
get this all squared away.
It was not that they have to accept ours, that was very clear,
Correct.
very clear.
No, they don't have to.
You don't even, and there isn't even a requirement to accept the report. The
No, that's right.
requirement was to submit the report.
Right, and then
That's
you
it.
can put people in the nomination, if there's more than one candidate,
Exactly.
you can go into
You
executive.
can't put more than one.
One
candidate
name at a time
Okay, so if somebody has a problem with that nomination, then we can go into executive
We
session
go into
to
executive
discuss
session.
it.
to discuss.
And then we come back out and
Right.
vote.
Right.
And if that vote carries, we have completed the work. If
And we can
that-
still vote after executive session, and if the person, it carries, you're right, if the
Right,
person
and
wins
if
by 2
not,
votes, then they win by 2 votes.
Then there'll need to be another nomination to continue to proceed till we have a successful candidate. So, Tiz, you do have corrected
I did,
minutes.
yes, and I believe, I didn't hear back from Sid, I didn't
They
hear from
did
you.
come,
Yeah,
we
I printed
just,
That they're fine, so there was an error in the draft, in our rush to get stuff done.
we were
on
working
that
up
day.
against deadlines.
Right.
This is the corrected text of the nominating committee's minutes.
And the change, if you'll notice, is clarification of the last paragraph on the first page, talks about approval or disapproval. It chunked two pieces together, one of the translations.
So,
And it addresses exactly what you just talked about.
yeah, it is, so I'm sorry how I misspoke that. So what we have are, would a member of the nominating committee like to just simply give the quick report of your,
Just, I think they just put in the nomination. What else did they put
Our
in?
report to me stands for itself. It was the intention of our report, which the minutes reflect, that it would include our minutes from both meetings and all 3 applications. And so you have our report.
what you also have on the table distributed is, the applications of 3 people. One is, Michael Farrell, who we're happy to see is here today. Another is from John Bono, and another is from Camille Parrish. And they were all considered in the part of the process. Applications were closed at our deadline on June 28th at 5 p.m. So I will entertain a motion for a commissioner appointed by this board to the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission.
The nominating committee
Has a
nominated Michael Farrell, so I'll make a motion to nominate Michael Farrell to the WAPC Commission.
I will second that.
Is there discussion?
I have a question. Right now, and I think I read a blurb, John Bono is not on it because that expired?
Excuse me? Oh, yes, his term completed, so
Okay.
that seat is now empty.
He's what, Mary?
His term has expired,
Right?
and legal counsel has advised us that that seat is now empty until we reappoint someone.
Right, so
he is one of the ones considered.
He is.
Right.
Yeah,
So
he's
it's
not a
considered
commissioner at
But
this
he
point.
is, that seat ended with his term.
Yeah.
Now, the rules for executive session, because I did ask for clarification about that, are very clear that the reasons for executive session, and we are fortunate to have counselors here, is that the issues should be discussed in public if there are issues to be discussed, but that any matter related to an individual would be considered a private
Right.
matter and done in
I would like to go into executive session.
Before we do
Is there a
that,
second?
I'll second that.
We're
Is that-
now in executive session.
is that a non-discussable event?
I don't know.
Don't you have to vote?
Vote.
Well, we
I'm
have to
sorry.
vote, we
You have to vote for,
for
right,
executive
but there's
session.
no discussion on going into executive
Correct.
session?
All those in favor
In
of
this
going into executive session?
Where was the second on that?
Oh, myself.
You did, okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
And my reason for that was we have a person here I would like to have heard from before we.
We can come back.
All right, video's on.
Okay. Mike, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to offer us any comments that you might wish to at this time.
Well, I wasn't prepared, so is there
I
anything in
know,
particular?
spontaneous.
Yeah.
No, but since you actually came.
We just wanted to give you an
We don't vote to
opportunity
come out of
to
executive
speak to
session.
us,
Is it
should
a
you
reason?
wish to. We're not gonna ask you questions, that's already
Okay.
happened in the interview.
First of all, when you called me the other day, I'd like to clarify that. I felt like a deer in headlights, but I was in Tennessee.
It's the thing with cell phones, you never know.
Well, and we had just drove straight through for 20
I'm
hours.
sorry, I knew I caught you at a
So,
bad time, I
I
just
was,
wanted to tell you
Like,
that
there was
you
things
had
I
been
wanted to say,
nominated.
but I couldn't say anything because
Yeah.
I was just spent. So I apologize.
Oh, you
But,
had a bad
I
time.
recognize everybody here, and I hope if I can do anything or any questions or whatever, anybody asks me, but
Just gonna let you.
thanks for the process, and it's not an easy thing to do, so as usual, I commend you all in sitting here and trying to do it.
Thanks for that comment. Entertain a motion,
We already have.
You
one.
already
don't have
already
your
have a
motion.
I do have a motion.
Call for the vote.
Mhm.
All those in favor of Michael Farrell as a nominee as the next commissioner for the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, please say, raise your hand. All those opposed? Sorry to say, that motion fails. I will now
I'd-
entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint John Bono.
Is
to
there a
Lake Water
second?
Protection.
I'll second that.
Is there discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstained? That motion does not pass. I will entertain a motion for another nominee for the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission.
I move that we appoint Camille Parrish.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Is there discussion?
I'd like to go into executive session to discuss this.
All those is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Bye, guys.
No, I'm good, thank you. I'm good on what we just talked, what we
Okay.
talked about in executive session.
Is there more discussion?
Well, I'd like to ask then,
Yes.
what the next step, just to clarify
Okay.
the
We are
next
going
step
to
of the
vote
process
on
with our.
the current nominee, who is Camille Parrish.
Okay,
That's
that
the
wasn't
next-
the original question, was the
But
next step in
that's-
the process, where are we in the process? We
We
vote,
have voted
and
on
then-
2 nominations, neither of those motions has carried. We are about to vote on our 3rd nomination.
For clarification, are we voting on a nomination or are we voting on
An
an
election to the position.
appointment?
I'm sorry, we have a a motion to elect
second.
Camille, and a second to elect Camille Parrish as our next commissioner.
Now we'll be voting on
So call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion fails. The process at this time is that we will continue. We will now entertain a motion for another candidate.
I'll make a motion to appoint John Bono.
Is there a second?
And actually, that's to reconsider the
it.
question.
Yeah, reconsider.
To
the question.
reconsider the
Reconsider the
question.
And it has to be somebody who voted in the affirmative.
I'll second
In the
that.
losing side.
Somebody that
Somebody who
voted
voted no.
So somebody who voted no for John has to bring that up.
Right.
Down on discussion? So I'm seconding it,
Wait, did you
Wait.
vote no for John?
No, you.
for John Bono.
Yeah.
He was positive.
You voted yes.
It has to be somebody who voted for a
It
vote.
failed though. Oh, that's right, so that
That's
would
right,
be.
so
That's
if you're
so
somebody
someone
who's
who
on the
voted
losing
no
side,
for John
If
has
somebody
to
who's on the
nominate him.
losing side, where it failed, that'd be somebody who's in favor, right?
I will
So-
entertain a motion
So
to
I have a-
reconsider any of the previous votes.
Now then I'm gonna have a question, since I was
Yes.
the only abstainer, where does abstaining fall on which side? We got Robert's rules here for me, I didn't do that intentionally, I did not do that intentionally, but that's the question. How an abstaining falls in a reconsideration. Had I known that it would have caused a problem, I probably would have abstained.
I'll wait for Tiz, but I'd like to say something as soon as she gets her answer. So that's a very good question.
Abstentions, chair,
Yes,
negative
it's somebody that-
votes. Okay, so negative votes when a same effect. So I have a feeling that my abstained was in effect a no vote, I think is what it's gonna tell me when I read the details.
Thank goodness I brought the book.
Yep.
Yes.
Negative vote, abstaining. So 403. Sorry about this. I used to know this.
So it has to be somebody who voted against it that has to. bring the
Since an
nomination up.
abstention in such cases has the same as a negative vote, these bases deny members the right to maintain a neutral position by abstaining. So I became a
Right.
That's right.
a no vote. Yeah, for the same reason the president may fail to vote. When a vote is required,
So-
the chair may count the
So
president's.
can I ask while you clarify that, just
Yep.
going back to the question that was asked, that no appointee is currently in that seat.
Right.
It remains empty.
Until we elect someone.
Yeah,
We could table this to the next meeting, because we're.
Well,
Well,
there,
here, there is
this
an
is what,
option.
this is where,
There is an option, and that is that if we wish to make a temporary
oh, that's not
appointment,
what I was gonna say, but, okay.
we can vote to make a temporary appointment of the incumbent.
And that's the only person we can make.
It's the only one that I know about,
Okay.
to extend that term.
And I forgot to follow up, we needed to ask. We
And he was out of
didn't-
town.
We didn't get the.
We
But-
need somebody from the prevailing side though to make him,
But-
put his name back in, which is whoever voted no.
So,
Somebody that
in other
voted
words,
no.
you needed a change of, right.
We need whoever- somebody
Did
that
you have
voted no,
another
he was-
question to
Oh,
ask?
so we were on the, so
Casey
the no
can't, so-
vote, he can't, but I can.
Right,
Okay.
I wanna ask,
Yeah.
answer Jason's
My other question
if I
was,
can.
if there is no decision, and I'm getting ahead of myself again, but I'd like to know, just for the sake of where we go next, if there's no decision, there are what, there are 3 members total on, or is it 4?
3 representatives of Auburn Water District, and 1 seat will be empty until we fill it.
Which is,
And so we would be underrepresented
at least until we can find somebody to fill.
until we elect someone to.
And how would that process work after the fact, since we've already gone through a
I
specific?
will need to talk to our lawyer about what happens.
So
We
we have
can
until
always
next-
table it,
Right.
but let's see if we
All
can
right,
keep
I was
moving
going to
forward.
say,
Somebody
since
on the-
I get the right to, I'm on the no side.
To
So
put somebody
I-
on the prevailing side.
So I'm on the
has a chance to
prevailing
bring it
side.
up
but
again.
first of all, established his nomination failed,
Did
right?
not.
He
Well,
could not
he
make a
definitely
Couldn't make
motion.
not
it,
allowed
he
to.
couldn't,
Right,
he
because he
couldn't
was not on
make
the
it.
prevailing
So I'll
side.
make a motion to table this,
All right, I can't discuss that. Any
So
seconds?
courtesy about, all right,
Wait a
right?
minute.
Is that where we're at?
Wait a minute, Tiz
You
was
need a
trying to
second,
say
right.
something.
She needs to go through what she was
She
gonna
was
ask.
trying to do
and then
Oh,
something,
she was
ask
gonna
you
do
a
it.
question.
interrupted
right.
her.
Okay.
I have been, since I'm the person, I'm on the side that can make it, that's
Okay.
what we just verified. So I'd like the courtesy of
Yep.
making the motion
ahead,
that we
Tiz.
reconsider John Bono's name.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there discussion? Call for the vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
To reconsider.
To reconsider,
then-
and
that's
we
all
can
we do.
all vote on the reconsideration.
That's correct. Yeah,
To
we'll go- it's a new vote.
reconsider John
Mhm.
Bono, please raise your hand. 4, all those opposed to reconsidering John, 3. The vote to reconsider John Bono carries. I will now entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint John Bono to the seat in the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission.
Is there a second? Is there discussion? Call for the vote, all those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries 4-3. John Bono
It
has
is done.
been elected. And we
Thank you
have.
for coming, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. We have elected
Thanks, Mike.
conducted an election. The first time we have learned how to do this, we've learned a lot.
One of our next steps will be to pin a calendar date to reevaluate our
We have
appointment committee
questions about the
process.
process.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, this is how it works. Now, we can decide not to have the committee and just have this discussion like we did
So
last
that's
time.
changing the process.
But we
So
can,
we
there,
need to
Well-
look at the process,
And
and I
I-
would encourage us to
There are
delay
2 or
it for
3
60 days.
specific points.
Yeah,
to-
if he
Keep
spoke
your
to any
notes.
of us members, I think we'd all say we need to review the current situation.
Review and
It
revise
had-
as needed.
It had
There
great
were problems.
challenges.
Okay.
So what I would like to say is,
Can we
and our,
Make a formal, motion to scrap that process, because I don't wanna forget and not come back to
we
it.
will not
and-
forget it. I would like
I-
to say that our legal counsel strongly advised us to do these things. Is to take notes about the questions and concerns you had about the process. And come back together before making any decisions to review that, have a cooling down and thinking period, and make a thoughtful process about reviewing what we approved on May 5th, rather than immediately jumping to a vote to scrap. I feel compelled to
Well, I
tell
don't
you.
think we should do that too. I just
So
think-
if you feel that, motion is necessary, I'm happy to present. I'm not doing it at this time, but if I were to do it, I would move the discussion and review of the nominating process.
Be on the next agenda.
No,
Oh.
let me finish this. Be on at the earliest, the October agenda, and no later than the November agenda, because part of it is we haven't defined our work. That will give us the cooling off period, will give us the reflection time we'll need. Those of us who process should probably document our concerns, because we know the challenges. And it would provide the opportunity for us to solicit input from the candidates that also went through the process, and the public observation. So I think September is too early, and January is too late. So
So there's
if
a
I was,
motion?
no,
I
I'm
second.
waiting to, I'll make the motion, right, all right, so then, all right, thank you.
I second.
So I am going to move that review of the nominating committee process for Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission seat be reviewed and discussed at a trustee meeting no earlier than the October meeting and no later than the November meeting, to see if any changes should be recommended.
So, and there's a
That's my
second.
motion.
Is there discussion?
I'm very much in favor of this, just because letting it, just knowing the way things go, you get busy, and I don't wanna put it off, so I would hope we could, consider this. It's a good idea to just pin it to the calendar and say we're going to.
I've got it in
do
my
this.
notes.
And as committee members, we have a responsibility, because we've seen the work up close, so this is one that I very
Put your
specifically
notes-
think
keep your notes.
Sid be included in, because he's a
Absolutely.
member of the committee.
Absolutely. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion carries. All right, a learning process has happened, and an election has been conducted.
Before we go ahead, I'd like to, we didn't have a chance to introduce Cindy Cass.
I thought you could wait till later.
Well, and I wanted to introduce her, but I didn't know who she was, and
Yeah,
Mary
I-
told us we didn't have to make people identify themselves if they didn't want to unless they spoke.
But that was, it just occurred to me that it was rude
So
not
who
to
is she?
introduce her.
Oh.
She's our new accounts payable clerk.
Oh,
She
my
replaced-
gosh.
She replaced Norma, who retired a few weeks ago, so
Yeah.
Terrific.
Well,
she's our,
welcome.
Thank you.
she's our new elected note taker.
There you go. Thank
Well,
you.
you guys have given me a run for my money.
That's why we have a video.
There you go. I'm like, okay, you guys are gonna sit in the same seats next month.
And although she left, and I know she doesn't have to till we get to the open session, which is at the very end, but did I make a courtesy request and ask the person who just left the room if she comes back to invite her to identify herself?
Okay, so cost sharing work group, we are now going
Are we gonna do that?
to
Are we gonna do that?
create,
Camille, but it's
Just
just
a
No,
quick
no, it's not.
request.
I thought it was her.
To offer,
Sarah,
just
would
since
you like to introduce yourself to the group as, if you're not required?
you're not required, we just,
It's just an
He
invitation to
gets, yeah.
Your name?
introduce yourself.
To name myself?
Yeah.
Yes.
you don't have to.
My name is Sarah Strong. I'm a citizen of Auburn. Actually, I live on Lake Auburn. And, so your work is of interest to me. Concerned citizen, involved citizen.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
coming.
Okay, one of the, processes in the models of group decision making called good group decisions, that I follow, and we have a exemplar of that in Maine in the form of Craig Freshleaf, and I think he's done some work with the council, is to help groups come together when they're varying ideas by letting everybody get their ideas on the table. And therefore, in our cost sharing work, you'll see in the compilation that this document that I sent to you and is on the table is a compilation of everybody's thoughts about cost sharing.
I'm not sure.
And
It was
Oh,
a.
it's an
yeah,
email.
it was an email,
Ah.
but I made copies if people don't have their,
And it will be included as
as
supplemental
a
material.
supplemental. And in addition, you had a letter from Casey Geiger and a letter from Tiff. And I've got copies of those here, in case you don't have your print copy with you. And I hope you had a chance to read it.
I just got it. When you made it.
And here is Tiz's. I love how Tiz talks about this as her homework assignment. I must say she must have been a good student.
Catholic school training.
There you go.
Always does her homework. So now we have the task of creating a charge to a work group that has not yet been formed, but which we agreed to do at our May workshop. And I'd like to say, for those of you who ever doubt that I forget anything and let anything slide, I hope you notice that I don't. I have built a career on never letting anything slide off the timetable. It may slide a little on the calendar.
Can I make a few comments
You certainly may.
related to this? When I look at our budget for the UV plant, it's $247,000. Some of that is direct cost of chemicals and things that we keep track of, and some of it's stuff that we split 50-50. Out of the 250, I'm guessing there's probably no more than $100,000 that's split 50-50 to this deal. And if that's it, and we're talking about a 10% shift from 50-50 to 60-40, we're talking about $10,000 a year if we do all of this stuff. Secondly, City of Lewiston has to be party to this.
20,000, right? If Lewis is paying 20% more, then,
Okay,
Yeah,
call
so-
it 20.
so it's
Whatever,
20 grand, yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah.
it's a lot of paper pushing to figure out how to split it and get the City of Lewiston to agree to it.
Right.
The City of Lewiston would have to be willing to renegotiate. City, have you talked to the City of Lewiston?
I have, I've kept them apprised on this, so they're aware, and they are aware that it's at least on the horizon and coming, so they're aware of it.
Have they staunchly said, no, we're not coming to the table?
Well, they haven't definitively said, they haven't really assembled, we haven't really assembled this group to the point where we presented them with anything, but they're
And so-
aware that this
And
is
so we would have to
something
present them
that's being
something.
Right.
Well, one of my concerns,
Wait,
Casey, and I understand what you're saying, but my concern is I compare it to LA 911, which was
I
there was a
know.
bill, and then all of a sudden there was a $5 million upgrade that we paid 50% of.
Yep.
Here we go, yeah, 10,000, all of a sudden, something comes up that really a major thing has to be done.
And that one thing
And we're
was-
50% of
And
that.
that thing was the Allen treatment.
That was big, but I'm talking
But
about
that-
bigger than
Yeah, it
that.
was 80 grand.
I'm talking about bigger than that. What if it's?
Someday there'll be a filtration plant.
And we'll pay half of
There you
the
go.
filtration.
Not necessarily.
Right, that's the time that
That,
that would have
that's
to
the
be.
time you bring it up. If it's when you
No,
build
because
it.
if it's an agreement that's
No,
already in
no,
place,
but-
we can't
No,
just bring it
because
up.
we individually agreed
you-
them separately, that's what happened with the alum treatment is, it does have a standalone agreement, but at the point that
But
we
the
thought
agreement-
about the 60-40 versus 50-50.
But having nothing
But
in
if
writing
we-
caused us to pay 50%
No,
of the
we
element.
had a draft that we shouldn't take action until we have a signed
But if
document.
we have a filtration plant coming along, that'll be the time you discuss how you share the costs. Just like when you built the sewage treatment plant. You set up a board of directors, and every month you decide how much is Lewiston's share and how much is Auburn's share.
So you're assuming that that would happen.
Well, but in
That's our
order, in
job.
order to agree to the plan.
That's our job, again.
That's what you would do.
We can't bring this up and then after the fact, let it go and
But there's
wait
no-
till we have,
But there's no,
there'll be a precedence of us accepting 10% of Lewiston's bill.
and there's.
Well, I would like to back up, we've already gone to me, down to one of the tasks to this committee. And our charge, the item on the floor is the charge to the committee. And we're already into one of the things. I don't think we have enough information in front of us to determine any cost-sharing arrangement. You all keep talking about the Lewiston share of expenses, and yet if you look at your monthly reports, which somebody said, oh, we wanted our monthly report to identify the Lewiston stuff.
Was that this right here, the
It's-
cost sharing?
No, it's right there in.
That was the
every-
attempt we made, yes.
Yes, okay, so I didn't read that,
Yeah.
because you get it every month. All you need to do, because I did it, but I didn't get a chance to put it into a spreadsheet, is I went through our monthly check register, identified every single Auburn, Lewiston Water District separation, which is what the three of you guys are talking about, and I went through the Auburn sewer one, because you wanna talk about money, I believe that's a more substantial and a more unequitable distribution, and I believe it's fraught with other problems. We also have had others, which if we're gonna give guidance and spend the time, we've done Poland and New Gloucester that I'm aware of, that have had cost-sharing segments. So I would encourage us to go back to the agenda item, which is, what do we want to charge this committee with?
So, not to redo what we did at our workshop in May, we did agree we were going to do some looking at this. And I took the compilation, and I really am grateful to everyone who took the time to put their ideas together. And, I wanna honor that Casey wishes not to do this. Dan and Jason were ready for the action plan, but the majority of us that was framed by Andy and Tiz and me said and what we had agreed to at our May workshop was that we were going to study this. So that we would be well informed, look at a lot of different models, understand this thoroughly. Every single one of us as trustees has a responsibility to understand this. So I've taken the liberty, I finished it this morning, of drafting something for you to consider. I apologize I haven't had a chance. I must say water district business has had me busy just about every day. Of putting together, Andy and Tiz, you're going to recognize your words here. And I wanna honor that. Should we move on to a step 2, where we're going to tackle this beyond a study, Jason has done an extremely good job of outlining what step 2 would be if we decide that there's an action plan that's needed. But if we agreed actually at our May workshop, that the first thing we were gonna do was have a thorough review and study. And I think well-informed decision-making requires that. And I think, Andy, your words, everybody who went that direction had well-developed words, of different words but the same idea. Understand the question, understand the problem. And so,
It's proving that there's an issue, what the issue is.
Yeah.
Research includes rates and the use of comparative payments and
Right.
so on and so on. We
And
need that
that's-
information.
And that's true of any cost-sharing arrangement.
everything you do, and
And then
Tiz
figure what
detailed,
that-
Tiz detailed it even more extensively and how to do it. And of course, One of my takeaways in recent couple of months is that the more detail into a process in the early stage, the better, because it helps us stay unconfused or be less confused. And Tiz did in her homework an excellent job of detailing it. What Casey has reminded us is when we do what I call in my profession scenario planning, one thing you gotta look at here is the costs. I mean, legal costs would be significant. We incurred a significant legal bill in the last 2 weeks. That's just for simple stuff like running an election and bond issues and all that kind of stuff. So we should remember that the meter will be running, and we need to do a scenario in which we in some way might accidentally damage a relationship that's been a long-term partner in this work, and we don't know that we want to do that.
Well, that's where the research would come in first.
Exactly.
They have the numbers that say, and if Casey is correct, that we're only talking about a small amount of money.
Right.
That's affected, then we need to look at part two, which is, okay, how does it affect the future? And if it has to be in the agreement that anything over a certain dollar amount must be negotiated each time.
It would be on new ventures.
On new ventures, but again,
I
the
just
Allen
want
Trees
us to
example,
launch
we
a
didn't get.
work group to
That should have
do
been
the
something that
study.
we negotiated.
We know.
Whoa, I just
Yep.
wanna launch a work group
Mhm.
to do the research, to do the study, to do the, so we can all, and who will report, as I put on the backside of this, provide a periodic update to the board. We will discuss it early and often as the work group continues. This is not, I've been appreciative that Jason has had other experiences elsewhere where things got sort of slam dunk, and next thing you know it, it's a decided matter before the full board has been engaged.
Mayor, this is IRS, but how does the MPUC slide into this? They're the utility law. So if Lewiston's gonna swallow any kind of
Can we
deal
stop
down the
talking
road.
about a specific arrangement? Can we keep it to any cost sharing? And the any cost
But
sharing?
why does it just say IRS
Because
rules?
IRS has very specific rules.
And
about-
MPUC does as well.
I'm not saying it didn't. If you wanted MPUC, you could have put it in your
I did,
request.
I've been talking
I'm
about the
sorry, I
MPUC.
did not add, so let's do,
Yeah.
So we need to add that then.
NP.
Yeah,
Just
that's
like
all.
regulatory
Tiz, we're just adding the
framework.
four
Right, but you
four
asked
letters.
why I
instead of
did it. I mean,
specific.
I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to doing
It'd
it.
be
I'm
real
opposed
simple
to-
if they came down with a
Whoa, whoa,
finding.
whoa, whoa.
Thank you, a friendly amendment here, we don't even have a vote yet, but if I like Jason, I really was in copy and paste mode. I mean, I'm trying to take the wisdom of this group.
yeah.
I believe in the wisdom of groups. No one individual, but together. That's what we're trying to do here, is make good decisions together.
We just need to get
So
the
add
charge.
main PUC rules for any cost sharing rate.
Can I suggest we call it regulatory, then listing the specific
Yeah.
regulatory bodies relevant?
It's
Regular.
good,
Yeah,
that'll
I
include
like that.
EPA and State of Maine Drinking Water Program and all kinds of stuff.
Regulatory
yeah.
rules for cost sharing arrangements, if
This
they
includes
have it.
ERISA.
I mean, it's a lot easier for Lewiston Water Division to swallow
not-
something.
not
because
general,
The rules that govern
specific,
them say that they
'cause
should.
we are-
This is about cost sharing.
It's specific to
No,
cost sharing.
Lewiston
You were
City
saying
Council.
PUC, you were
Lewiston
gonna
Water
say
Division
specific
first, though,
agencies.
it's
I think
Lewiston
that
City
needs to be
Council.
Well, I
identified.
wanna
We know
be
who they
sure
are.
that-
We know who they are.
But we
know-
can say
No,
regulatory
it's the city of
agencies,
Lewiston, unfortunately.
but I want to be sure that IRS is addressed, because
Yeah,
most,
that would
and
be-
I think
Including
Dan's thing about main
IRS and
PUC.
NPUC.
Right. It's
And
been
any
two.
other
And
regulators.
any
Right, the
others.
title's gonna be all regulatory.
Okay. If you look at page 1 for step 1, we have a modification of the line IRS rules to say regulatory agencies rules for cost sharing arrangements, including the IRS, the MPUC, and any others. Are there any other things that, and this is not, I mean, this could be changed.
I
Because
don't
we're
wanna
not
take
gonna-
action tonight on
Yeah.
this, because
We're
it's only
not
been
ready to
received to
launch.
the, so.
Not
if
not
you
that
want
we're
to-
not, I think we're ready to move forward with
Right.
making this happen. Directionally, we should probably vote on it,
Yeah.
but I
We're
don't
not ready
think
to vote.
specific
Yeah,
wording.
I do not have time to
And
do
it-
it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great start, so we might allocate whatever time was allocated on the agenda to discuss this by reading it, to raise questions, because Dan's question about the MPUC, of course, because I wasn't looking specific at ours, I'm broader at the, but there must be other things that each person has.
Okay.
Because this is more limited than a lot of us
Add to it,
specified.
I just tried
So,
to.
no,
pull
I'm saying,
from-
should we take this
I'll
just
send
go
it to you.
around and,
I know,
or you're
maybe.
saying do it now, but.
Well, I'm gonna suggest that if there's time on the agenda, that we take 5 minutes to read this, in order to move it forward and feel that we've accomplished some part of this today. So in your first read, and I think Dan's point was very well taken, he quickly read IRS and said, what about MPUC? And then you say, well, what about other regulatory? So in our first read, are there any things that are glaring that come out that we either need to ask questions or include in the process? That would be my suggestion.
My thought is we shouldn't be doing this at all.
Right.
We hear that.
Well, do we need to vote on doing something?
We already
We don't have
decided
to-
that, we already
we
voted
decided-
that earlier.
Well, we agreed to it at our workshop.
Right.
Okay.
And, you know, I have a strong belief in thoughtful approaches, though I hate to see things get slowed down, but thinking sometimes takes time. And I have to say, I did not have time to draft something until the last minute. I appreciate this as input, but I don't think we should vote on this tonight. I think I will send it to everybody tomorrow, and when we, we'll have a future meeting that maybe will even be a special meeting to vote on this if we need to. But I think everybody needs to think about this, so that, because this is an important and delicate matter, and Casey's letter to us all reminds us that this is a very delicate matter. And he's got 2 decades of experience here, and I wanna honor that.
And I think, Casey, I would hope not tonight, but at a next meeting only, but you feel free to do it tonight, that there's every right for a motion to come forward to say, we are not going to address this any further. That is an action
We
this
don't
board
have
can
to
take.
do it.
Because it's been in our work plan or discussion, but there's never been formal action on it.
I would like to make a motion that we've studied the issue, we don't see any glaring unfair expenses. It's not perfect, but making it perfect is gonna cost an awful lot of effort and time. And I think this board deserves to do other things with our time and not spin this thing only to go to Lewiston City Council and them saying, no, thank you, we're not interested, and we've accomplished nothing.
Okay, so I
Now,
still didn't hear your
so-
motion,
so-
so
so-
I heard
so-
your argument for the
so-
motion, but what is the motion you're proposing?
I propose we declare the cost-sharing agreements between Lewiston and Auburn fair and or at least reasonable, and that we no longer can decide to study them.
So you're only limiting it to Lewiston Auburn's
Well,
agreement?
that was it, the 50-50 Lewiston, I don't.
Okay, so the motion on the floor
Is
is not to proceed.
To not
For
proceed.
Lewiston.
For the
Cost sharing.
cost sharing between
Between
Lewiston and Auburn.
Right.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second that motion.
Discussion.
One of the things that I've been, and again, I hate to repeat myself, but we have a lot of interlocal agreements that I've been working with for the past couple of years. And the problem I've found is if we have one side who's got an advantage and they don't wanna come to the table and talk about it, then we are talking about what Mary is saying, lawyer fees and blah, blah, blah. If Lewiston staunchly says, nope, I'm sorry, you bought it, you own it, we can't go any further in this case, unless we wanna spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. That's gonna be the problem. Now, we entered into an agreement, we signed it in perpetuity, which is a mistake that was
I'll
made
get you there.
whenever that was done. Like LA 911's the same way, it goes on forever. If we go to Lewiston and say, hey, how about we renegotiate this, and they say, no, we have a choice. We either have to get legal counsel and fight for our rights, and like you talked about, go to the MPUC, everybody else, and fight for our rights. So, I wish that we would just go to that route first, this committee would get the information together, but then talk to Lewiston. If they're staunchly saying, nope, we ain't budging, this group's gotta come back and say, are we willing to spend $50,000, $100,000 in legal fees to make this happen? That may change our minds, just what Casey's saying. We're only gonna save $10,000, $20,000 a year, it's gonna cost us $100,000 in legal fees to fight it. So, my concern, why I wanna see this committee work, but the first thing we need to do is come up with enough information to go to the other party and see if they're willing to negotiate. Do they see? And then I would say publicly, we make it clear, okay, Lewiston knows that it's unfair, but they wanna keep it.
If that comes up, that's
I
just.
wanna-
That's right, just like with
That's
I-911,
perfect.
I want the
I got you,
parties to
Dan,
come
I got
together,
you.
the
Yeah,
mayors
Dan's
and the
first,
city
I'm sorry,
managers to
Dan.
come together and say, LA 911, No, we like it the way it is, and then I wanna publicly announce that, okay, Auburn is paying 50%, which is way over what they're using. And I just want it publicly announced, that's what it is, and the ratepayers are paying it, everybody's paying it, but it's gotta be out in the open that they didn't want. Now, if they wanna negotiate, then the problem with legal fees and the problems is gone. Now we bring people to the table who are willing to make changes, and we negotiate what makes sense, and we come up with an agreement without all the lawyers involved. So we have to finally, we gotta get that to that first step, which is to get the other party to wanna talk about it. If they don't want to, and they're happy with the agreement, our step two is to say, do we wanna fight it? But we don't know that yet.
We don't
Because
have
nobody
the-
wants to talk to them
Right,
and say,
hold on, next
what do
person
you
up is
think?
Dan. He's
Yeah,
been
I
so
know Dan wants to
good.
go right to the mat, but I think we first gotta find out, do we have to go to the mat?
I like
If we
this.
don't have to go to the mat, and
You
we
can
get
talk
the.
about it if you don't have the data to start.
I like to discuss
Well,
his
we
motion.
get the data.
Yeah.
Right, that's
We're
what
trying
we're
to
talking
discuss
about.
the
We're-
motion.
Yeah, can I just say something? Are you done, Anna?
I am done.
So I'm just saying, if his motion passes, that I foresee a PUC complaint being filed by 10 Auburn ratepayers saying that this is unfair. Not that I'm leading that charge, but when the information gets out, that we're not looking at it, and we're not doing anything, and we continue to spend 80 grand more for an in-lake treatment than we should have,
In your
against a
opinion.
city council resolution,
Not against the city council.
well, I mean, against their
Resolution we can
opinion.
look into.
And that's
We did
also
say
what I
we
wanted to
would.
say regarding his motion, that if that passes, then I see lawyers getting involved and we don't need that.
Well, it was a
All right,
resolution to
hold on.
look into,
Is-
but the city
and
council
Who
approved
else
it.
wants to
It was-
speak?
I
I
thought
just-
Casey got the
I
floor
wanna
next.
vote, so we can go back to our agenda item.
Yeah.
Just to make a statement, if Lewiston
Call it
wasn't
question.
taking water from the lake, we'd be paying 100% of everything, not 50%.
Oh, but that's not, that's.
I know, but it, but
both have to
looking at
filter
it,
our
looking at
water.
it, we'd be
I
paying
wanna
100%.
ask, if we
So
ready
did-
to vote?
I am.
Yeah, and the motion is that we, could you
Drop
read
it.
that, discontinue all,
We declare the cost-sharing agreement between Auburn Water District and Lewiston Water to be fair and needs no more research.
right. Is that what the,
Yep.
that was what the motion was, yeah?
And we'd have to put something to that that says we have research. it,
No,
because-
no, that was his motion.
Okay,
is
the
not-
motion
That's
is-
his
But understand
motion.
that the motion is against the council resolve, which said we approve the
Okay.
bonding as long as you guys are gonna look into the cost sharing.
And his position, you've got proof that we've talked
There's a
about.
motion and there's a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that motion does not carry.
So we're talking, our agenda item currently is the cost sharing work group. We're talking about doing it as a committee.
Yep.
Like we just did with our appointment. And we have to identify the data that we need to make these, have these discussions. So this,
So
we
that's
can
step
decide
one,
right
right?
now, it's step one and it's step two, and it's like what are the cost sharing arrangements we've done? We've collected copies of all these, we've already done that.
No, we have not.
We got collected, but
We
we
didn't-
haven't researched.
No, we have not collected
So
them
it's
all.
more
Oh, we
about
haven't got them
research.
all?
I thought we
No.
got them
Oh,
all.
yeah.
Were the ones that were
So-
relevant to what,
So, cost sharing arrangement, what's the most expensive cost sharing arrangement you believe this district has?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
What, of those that you've read, what do you think is the most significant?
I don't know off the top of my head. I've got a whole bunch of them in my inbox
Okay,
and I've read through a
because
bunch
for
of them,
me,
but
in
we've
8
even talked
years,
about a
I
bunch
have
of them,
not
but we're
seen
not,
arrangements with the Auburn Sewer District.
okay,
And
where,
it is the largest,
and not to cut you
dollar
off, but we did start this talking about the Lewiston in relation to this specific agreement. I agree that we needed to,
but we
have
moved
that
it
discussion
beyond to
separately.
Lewiston, to a cost sharing work group, to
But
look
again-
at our cost sharing arrangement.
okay, well, we need to identify the data points
Right,
first.
and that's, I agree.
We need to clarify the data needed for a full and comprehensive analysis. That's all the same thing. Identify this first one, I think,
Could I
I guess
ask
that's where it
that
is,
we
but-
not try to, I
Right.
mean, I have,
Edit it, right.
yeah, I think what we have, I
but I
appreciate
think
we
the
now
starting
have
point
the
of the
clear.
data is where we need to go.
I'd
And
agree.
we all would probably agree with that. Andy said that in his, we
Right.
just have to know,
I just
where
want
are we
a chart.
starting? What is the
I
dollar
want
value
a
that she put in
clear-
this document?
I want a clear
Is
chart.
step one,
I have
right?
learned more clearly than ever the importance of a clear charge to a work group. And therefore, I'm very prepared to work with us to schedule, to do this, because we cannot deliberate by email.
Right.
As we know.
Right.
I am very prepared to work with us as we move forward on a workshop in which we will hash this out at a time that's not 5:25, to get a clear charge. And I will send this to everyone, and when we get down to new business, let's schedule a workshop where we can
And why do we
Sleeves up.
need a special workshop on this
So what-
topic until we
to
have,
get this written.
until we get a draft that's close enough? So wouldn't our homework be to take your draft
Yeah,
and update it, and you do the same exercise you
and
just
then I'll
did?
compile, I'm
Right.
happy to do
Right.
that.
And that will allow people who are trying to deliberate and provide other information of a differing viewpoint to make sure that everybody gets that information.
So what I'm hearing from Tiz
Right,
is that
just
the
for me.
procedure to continue to get this right is going to be that I'm going to send this to everyone. You will send me your ideas about how to revise it. I will compile them and we will take action at the September meeting.
And there are two things on here to be clear. On our agenda, it was the charge to the committee, which I think is the most
I
important.
do too.
The second was appointment of the members, but we haven't defined
That's
the
right.
committee
Can't
yet.
do it till we
So
do
you
the
can't
charge.
do, no, you can't do it till you identify the committee structure.
Do we
We've
have
gone
to
immediately
just-
to a charge without identifying. Now, I think we might be able to get the committee structure done tonight, I think, because but I don't know that.
Do we have to do this as a committee? Can we have a workshop and just say, do your homework, bring your homework to the workshop, and let's hash it out instead of having a committee process? Then the committee has to go do their work, come back to the board and say, oh, you didn't do this or that, and the other thing.
In general, in board governance, small work groups are the most efficient way to make deep dive data research to get jobs done, and then to report back, because I think we can see when we are the committee of the whole as a board, there's 7 of us, we're active, busy, and we have a lot of business to do. That is sort of a fundamental of board effectiveness, is to utilize a small group structure to do the in-depth research. And while my views on that don't have to prevail, I can tell you that that is sort of a given in how boards are the most effective in their governance functions. And I think full board committee of a whole is a model that usually slows everything down and not everybody gets a chance, and they don't go so deep. And I think this data requires a deep dive. That's my view. You can overrule me, but I feel compelled to tell you what my expertise knows about board governance and effectiveness.
I
and
did my
efficiency.
homework already, I'm just gonna give it to you.
I love it.
So,
Did you go to Catholic school too?
We're gonna just go month after month.
CCD.
well, it doesn't matter. You wanna do it right, or you wanna do it fast. So if we wanna do the committee of the whole, which is what I'm hearing from you, then.
Do we
it's
have to
gonna-
have a motion to do this, or can we agree in principle?
Well, I was gonna say, I wanna be clear what we're trying to do. On the agenda were 2 items. The charge to the committee, which we got compilations of information. Some people included defining the committee structure, but we haven't done that, and the other item was appointment of the members. So I do not know how we're gonna appoint members, I don't know the process we're gonna appoint them, but more importantly, I don't know how you're gonna appoint members if you don't know what the committee structure is. Does it have 2 people, does it have 3 people?
Well,
Is it a
I'd like
convener
to
or not?
first start a charge, so that
Right, that's
we
where I'd
can-
like to go,
let's-
right.
Let's do one thing first, and the reason they're in the order they are is that you can't really appoint members and structure till you know what the charge is.
Right.
So I will entertain a motion that, people will send me their ideas to revise the draft I prepared. I will compile them and we will tackle this at our September meeting.
I'll second that.
Can I make that motion?
So you can
I
make-
thought that was it.
I'm not sure, so moved, right, is there a
So
second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
That I will send you, my motion is.
Or
that-
Dan's motion?
Dan-
Dan's motion,
Yeah.
So we,
that I will send this, proposed charge to the board. You will send me your ideas to revise it. I will compile everyone's ideas, and at the September board meeting, we will complete work on a charge.
so we just did this, and maybe you're saying it's
This is for the
refined.
charge. This is refining what I drafted off of what you gave me.
Right, so this, yeah.
This is the
So this is
refining.
wave
Step 2.
2 of the same
Step 2,
process where we
right.
said
And
step
that
2.
is to let the wisdom of everyone hear. there's a motion and a
Wait.
second, all those in favor?
Wait a minute,
I
I
think that
wanna
you-
make sure that,
Very specifically consolidated our points and said, here are the 4 common points, or 3 or 4. I agreed with it, you didn't put my name on it, but
I'm
you said
sorry.
3 people, but 4 of us or more, I think, said we agree that we need to start with what information needs to determine.
I just gotta, I'm gonna tell you that my experience here has said that you gotta get the charge exactly right, so
Right.
that we don't get convoluted.
and based on our last committee, and our new processes.
I used to think it was easier to do, but I
Yes, it's
discovered
new
it's not.
practice.
Getting the charge right helps builds the framework for effective work. And we're not there yet. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
5-2.
5-2. All right, we are proceeding. All right, the third thing is the action plan for implementing step 1 of the annual review process for the superintendent, which we learned from our legal counsel is the job description. In your packet, you will notice that we did on July 17th approve a process. There was a request from Andy Titus to make sure it says that the evaluation form will be available in both paper and online form. And
If possible. I mean, that was Survey Monkey, which,
these days, anything is possible.
oh, no, I think it-
And I was confused by the minutes, because the minutes indicated that what we did last month was the first reading of it, which would imply that it isn't.
Well, then
an
that should have been
agreed
a
upon.
correction to the minutes, because everyone told me that you wanted 2 readings.
I'm sorry?
Everyone told me.
That's,
the meeting
that's
didn't
true,
need 2
but
readings.
when we did it, and I don't recall
Yeah.
when we did it, and obviously the last 30 days have had a great impression on what we agreed to, so.
Well, everybody told me this was, all we needed was 1 vote and it was approved.
yeah, that's right, there was no second meeting, it's not, usually like the public hearing type. thing.
Right, I'm asking the question because it was in our minutes.
And so that should be a correction. Thank you for catching that.
I'm
So
not
what-
including
So
that.
now we're
by
gonna
the way.
approve
What
the,
everybody said you wanted to see was more detail on how each step would happen. And pointed out, which is true, that this is essentially a summary outline of the steps that was approved on July 17th. I watched the video so I could be sure I had it right. And so I have, taking what we were told by legal counsel in an earlier meeting that Sid and I had with our attorney to make sure I could understand how to properly do this entire process. You will recall, he said that the job description is the right way to begin.
Yep.
Because this area is the single greatest source of litigation for any organization, and it starts with the job description. So what I drafted was a proposed plan to implement step 1 of the evaluation was getting the job descriptions ready. And so I wrote down every step I could think that would be a detailed plan on how you would do this. And so I'm gonna speak to the work group. Our legal counsel advised us that this is best done by a work group with the president and at least 1 other trustee, because 2 voices, not 1. But best not done by the board as a whole, because because there's a lot of detail work in getting job descriptions correct. And that we would work with the current superintendent's job description, revisions proposed by the superintendent. We would make sure we understand the information that we've been provided, that we would work with the superintendent to identify, and then Tiz has some alternate suggestions.
let me,
Other districts,
Are there copies of this? This is yours, Tiz?
and here is Tiz's, there are copies, here is Tiz's, but I just wanna go through this
Yeah,
one
it's
that I
fine.
sent. And then Tiz
But I
has
saw him
taken
making
some
some.
time to offer her ideas and suggestions. We would bring this back to the board once we have as we create the job descriptions. Tiz has very nicely in her homework created an alternative.
No, I updated yours, I
Or-
used yours as the basis.
So, yeah, and
Her
what I
edits.
meant is revised, and
Yeah.
I'll let her talk through what she thinks, which would be different than what I proposed, or a modification.
Yeah.
Take the
Oh,
floor.
all right, so when I read the minutes, Mary got an email from me and said, I didn't think we had come to the decision of making it, writing the job description, that I wanted to be clear what today's expectation was, which is to review step one and identify in more detail. So Mary started it, and it was in our agenda packet, what she has presented as a draft for us to consider the details in step one.
The date on that, I'm sorry, can I just,
That's in your agenda packet.
right, did you have
It
that?
was
I didn't see-
August
You didn't have it?
21st.
I don't know.
It was
Okay,
out,
it's
it was
that
in your
It's in
packet.
your-
I have it, I
Yeah.
just gave mine to him, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure.
And
because
all I
think we
did
had
was
it.
take this,
Thank you.
knowing it was our assignment today, because I wasn't clear till today what the charge was, and added my comments to this based on our past experience and the skill sets that I had in job description development. So Mary's information raised questions or was not clear to me in some places that I thought should be clear. So all I've done is take hers.
And I'm very grateful, Tiz, of course, has expertise in HR, and it's always wonderful when someone from their professional life can bring their background as a resource to support the work of the board. I'm always glad to see changes where the word will gets turned to may, or way, and typos and all. You've reworded, and I think it's right, if the work group wishes, staff may contact other districts for information. I really think that's an excellent idea. The American Water Association may have.
Some of this is just clarification, what you said, because you had that they could go out. I think though that this is the work of the trustees, so it should, even though staff may prepare it and send it and calculate, that it goes over the president's name.
Okay.
So I agree with having you and one other person
Yeah,
review
good.
it and then bring questions to us, and we have a copy of the job description, we can look at it.
Yeah, and send
Yes,
it
we
all
send it
out,
to us.
the current one.
One thing I would wanna make a point is that if we're going to do a evaluation though,
Yeah.
we can't go with any revised job description. That is, if we're going to do an evaluation in the next month or two, we can't have a revised job description and evaluate the person based on a
Good,
new
good
job
point.
description.
I think
So
we're
we
looking
are
at
stuck
months
with the
out.
old job description.
Right, for
to
an
do our
evaluation.
Now, the next year's evaluation, we would use the new form, but we
But that
can't,
assumes that we're gonna do an evaluation prior to,
well, we have to wait a
Well,
full
we
year.
need to
you know?
actually understand some more about that question. I get your question. What Jim told us, both here and in a meeting, pre-meeting, was that the single biggest source of labor complaint is an evaluation done on an old job description.
Well, but only if the evaluation has questions that aren't relevant to the old job description. So
Well, I
you-
want clarification on that
Yeah, no.
because he,
How about the point that he's doing things that are not in his job
Right.
description as well? How do we address
We can't
that?
evaluate him on that until it's
no,
the job
of
description.
doing it,
No.
not evaluating, but again, I think whatever we do with an evaluation on the current job description is a disservice to our employee.
Then we're not gonna do an
We-
evaluation.
Not until we have a job description
been in
that's
full
approved,
force for
that's
a
been
full-
enforced for a period of time, not
Okay.
necessarily a whole
And the
year.
evaluation is off the table for a while, then, and we'll just.
Well,
just
again,
do the
this is
review.
my
opinion.
I think it's unfair to our employee to either take a job description that probably has not been looked at by
Correct.
the board.
I agree.
I know it in more than 8
That's-
years.
That's my point.
To an individual who has not had one and now say, oh yeah, we've messed up for 8 years, but now we want it all fixed
My
overnight.
point exactly.
Yeah,
I see
think-
your point. I think it
So-
does change the time frame for the job description, the evaluation.
Evaluation,
right.
absolutely.
Because,
Mary?
but I just gotta
Bob
finish
has a
this
question,
up.
he's been trying to ask for a
I'll
while.
get
Yeah, I know, I've been just waiting and waiting, and everyone is just.
I just have to tell you that this was very explicit in our lawyer's
I
comments.
understand, thank you.
Bob, I'm sorry, I've
Yeah,
not seen you.
I don't say much, but,
The step one on the proposed plan to implement the superintendent's annual review, proposed 8/21/19, step
Yes.
one. The second item, the work group will also work with the superintendent to identify the job descriptions of other key employee positions that will be included in the review process. Why are we even dealing with this here? We're dealing with the superintendent and his job. I don't think we should be mixing in other employees as well. We should deal with this topic and
I wanna tell you
not this.
what
And
I
also
like.
Sid emailed, well, I'm not done. Sid emailed us all a job description by email.
And
And
changes.
I think maybe Sid should be asked about this, if that job description is up to date. We're all talking about, is it up to date? Well, I think Sid can tell us if that job description for his job that he emailed to us is up to date or not, and we can get that question answered right here.
I emailed the current job description to everyone, and I had 3 or 4 different things that I thought should be included in there that weren't.
Yeah.
So
He did his
I did that
assessment.
months ago.
So that's
why it needs to be reviewed.
And the reason that in his work that he did, he sent us his current one and any proposed changes, and he sent you this 3 to 4, specifically relate to putting some tasks and duties that are on the current one to someone else. Well, in order to move them to somebody else, you gotta know what's there. That was the purpose of
There's
that.
actually another reason, and Sid was with me, I get that this is a complicated thing. But when Jim was both at this board, and when he went into greater detail, when Sid and I met with him, I have to tell you that this was with our legal counsel's explicit direction. He changed many things to say this is what he will recommend as our counsel. So I wanna talk about the part about the review of the other key employees' responsibilities as part of the process of job descriptions. We're not evaluating those employees.
Just looking at their job description.
And that is because we as trustees have a legal responsibility to make sure that all the key responsibilities of the work of the district have been in fact covered. It's not our job to say by whom. We hire a superintendent to do that. However, there are key responsibilities that we in fact have a legal responsibility to make sure have been covered by someone. And when we review the job descriptions of the top employees, it's without regard to who those other people are, it's about their positions and their responsibilities. Our review process of that is to make sure that all bases are properly covered, because we have legal responsibilities to ensure that they have them. And that's the reason for that. And he wanted to say, and it's because it was a little, there were a lot of thoughts about this during our meeting, is that he is hired by us to protect the district. And the work of the trustees is to protect the district. And so his answer is, this is what the district has to do, and we as trustees have to do it on behalf. So that was the reason for his advice on this. And that's why we need to look at these job descriptions. And that's why they go down one layer beneath the superintendent.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for getting other advice is that many of us don't know. But when we look at it, we have peer institutions of other districts and other professional associations that if we are concerned, for example, the question was asked, how would you know if the pipes are getting fixed by somebody, and using the right tools? Well, I don't know that. But we know that someone in the district has that Sid has a responsibility to make sure that there's somebody responsible for equipment. It's that kind of level. We're not saying what should be the equipment, but it has to be someone's assigned responsibility. And we as trustees have to ensure that that's been done.
So I don't see why anybody would have a problem. Anybody have a problem with us getting and reviewing them? I mean, we gotta continue to review them. We're not making a decision tonight. It's step one is still in the process, because we need
We
the job
just gotta get
descriptions for
started.
the other people.
Yep,
and-
we're not doing it all, it's just the process.
And I think that as long as we look at them, we got them emailed to us, we look at them, revise as needed, I think we gotta have, an agenda item that says, okay, what are your additions or deletions or whatever
Yeah.
to
And-
these job descriptions?
So I'm
Well, the
happy.
work group does that.
The work group does, and then we bring it back to the full board.
But all information to the work, so in my response to this, all information provided to the work group at whatever time is provided to the work, is provided to all trustees, because ultimately it's all trustees. And, we know from going through this and then having the ending product today, that it is important that all trustees have all the information available. So.
But the work group has this
But the work-
responsibility of
right.
the deep digging.
Yep.
Right, and if it's over 2 people, it creates so again, I'm anal about covering specifics. So if we identify the work group as being 2 people, then the whole public meeting stuff goes away. 3 people, we wanna be clear, because what we experienced by our abbreviated narratives was, it left a lot to interpretation, and it follows the rule. If it isn't documented, it wasn't done. So we had no options. The example I put, I think, either in here then, is to be sure that any process we have, any process, that there be a statement in there, that if the committee or work group has a challenge, that it can come back to the board to make changes to the process. Because we were just stuck with a process that absolutely no changes could be made.
And not
And that
to
makes no sense.
avoid public meetings, but I think too, for this type of research task, too, is a great idea. Then you can just do it at home, collaborate, shoot things out to the group and say, hey, do you have input? Let's gather it. It's
Right.
information gathering, it's,
That's right, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We have to have
Okay.
a public meeting to vote on the job descriptions, but the working on them.
So am I hearing the one decision we can make tonight for sure is that the committee will be only made up of 2 people?
Well, are we ready, could we vote in fact to approve Tiz's revisions to my document?
I've already added a couple just sitting here. But
Okay,
that's all right.
well,
But
then-
no, if everybody else likes it, who am I to complain?
It gets us started, and I do have a desire to get the,
Was your question fully answered about that? 'Cause
I think it was, when it comes to job, we weren't talking about just the job descriptions, we should know that what they are, not to evaluate them.
So it's just-
We should know that there's a job description for the key individuals, and have an
And-
opportunity to look at.
And the superintendent is the one who knows what those job descriptions
That's right.
are.
Right.
And those descriptions are in print someplace.
they should
Yeah, I've got
be.
them all.
And are they, and the
Yeah.
next
Says
question is,
LC.
are they up to date?
That's why we're doing this work.
I already
Well, I
mentioned,
think the superintendent might be able to answer that question if they're up to date.
Well,
I
let's-
encourage
let's
Sid
say
to
this.
update
I'm
them.
not trying to put you on the spot, okay? But I mean, do you think the job descriptions of, when you evaluate your employees, and the most recent evaluation, would you, Sid, not putting you on, well, I'm putting you on the spot, yeah. But I mean,
Putting you on
you
the
know the
spot.
answer to this question. Are the job descriptions, to your best of your knowledge, up to date?
I will say some of them do need to be tweaked a little bit, they weren't, the last time they were done was 2013. So
That's
they're-
close.
So, I will say there were a few things in there
No,
that could
we
probably,
have to approve it.
So,
That's
so the
why
work
we
group will
vote.
probably need your input on what those tweaks might be in order for them to successfully and properly do their work, and more work for you to do.
they could use a little work.
Okay, what I need to, this
You need a
clock is
motion.
ticking.
Right, so you need a motion.
I need a motion to
I make a
proceed.
motion to approve to approve step one as presented by the attorney, and then revisions to be made that have already, inputs have been made by his, which may be verbal.
Yeah, with her amendment,
Correct.
anything, everything comes
As
back.
long
That's
as
in
it
there.
still
Okay.
falls within the
The one piece I
guidelines
don't
of our
see
attorney.
is, right. The one piece I quickly read in mind that I think is missing is to make sure that if there's a problem with this step, it can come back for change in the process.
So I make that
I
motion
think
that we
that's
accept it as written with revisions by Tiz, as long as they follow the direction of our attorney.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed?
I don't think we should be making this decision without thoughtful thing, and we didn't have that tonight, because we received these at the table. but that's all right, we got the action done.
We
got the action done.
The action is
Are
done,
the
so we'll have
members-
one other person that works with,
Right.
the president, and get reports on what's going on a regular.
I wonder if there is anyone ready to volunteer to work with me. And if there isn't, would you be willing to let me actually ask Casey, who is a very seasoned person around here, to be my partner?
Can I also offer one thing?
Yeah.
Just in terms of job descriptions and compiling data, that's one of the things I do for work. So if you have specific requests, can you bounce them off me, say, hey, I'd like job descriptions from the top job boards for superintendents, or just something.
I'd
If
love
you'd
this
like,
software.
just, I don't know.
He
like-
promises
But
not to
again,
Google it either.
unless he's-
I won't use
But
Google.
again,
I don't
unless
know
he's
if
a
I
member of
can-
that committee, we should accept that for all 7 people.
And-
Which I think is on here. I think you're saying you request input from everybody, so I'm just
Yeah.
volunteering to
Thank you
help,
for
but
that
you guys
volunteer.
are specifically would be guiding.
Would this board be willing to let Casey be my work?
Absolutely,
Oh,
I would-
absolutely.
Yes, if he
Excellent.
wants to.
because it really shouldn't be, it should
Well,
be,
I,
Do
I
you
know
want
the
to?
history of the superintendent.
He knows also
And I
the work.
did say, I
clearly
did
it's
say,
missing.
I
Okay,
don't know that,
Yes.
Andy, but I do
we
know
are
that
moving
I
on.
volunteered
So that
to
committee doesn't
work
need
on
to
the job
vote, it's just,
description
it's
for
happened,
this.
it's done. We're
Let's
deciding.
be on, let's be
So
on
I'll make
that,
the
I'm
motion,
not
make
sure.
it clear.
we'll get
I
rid of it.
move that with his agreement, Casey Geiger and the Auburn Water District President be the current, work group for reviewing the superintendent's job description and other details outlined in this process.
Second.
I'll second that. I'll second.
Is there discussion?
Just one of the things I wanna make sure I'm hoping that the committee is gonna consider is, one of the reasons why Dan Bilittle came into play in all of this watershed issue is because of previous superintendents' roles of negotiating land and also being on the other end of the fence and
I agree
regulating
with your
them.
point.
And regulating
Right, but
land.
that's got to do with.
Huge, I know, huge conflict of interest, and I know KC, back in those days, you were like, oh, no big deal, like, the guy that buys the land, it could be, there was actual documentation and letters, and I still have them, that show, well, it's unfortunate that the septic system can't be put on your land, so we have to devalue that land, and LawPEC's gonna buy it for that
Okay,
devalued
so
cost.
Dan, is this in opposition to the motion on the table?
No, it's not, but it's a
Okay.
clarification that I'm hoping KC, because I'm
Well,
voting in
yeah,
favor
but
of
that's
him.
after the
Well,
fact. We have
consider-
to
I
speak
am
on.
working on
Oh,
the job
okay,
description.
I'm
Data
gonna
collection
call.
And the
That's
job
no.
description is,
Okay,
does
call
he?
for the vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Then I'll oppose.
All right. Now,
Unanimous votes are much.
Still submit your comments, I mean, that's part of it. so.
absolutely, this is a work in progress. The election had more rigidity because it's a very formal legal process to run an election.
Well, it's because we didn't have the experience that what is said is absolute, and so now we
And
need to make
everyone.
sure that everybody has a vote.
We had a request for information about the measuring of the lake and information on the superintendent's plan. The date of measuring of the lake is
August 28th.
August 28th. And Tiz, you had a question.
And I know that the invitations had to be in around the 22nd, I just wanted an update of how many are expected to be in attendance and what the current estimated cost is.
There's roughly 20 respondents, I believe, 21.
Okay,
And do you have an estimated cost?
Well, the deposit was $500 deposit.
I saw that in the,
Yeah. I don't know if
maybe you can send it because of timing, send this out, but I'm particularly, I'd asked for, again, the cost, what line item it came out of, because it was discussed that we would have a separate line item for this event. And you said that there was an amount, but we didn't have the reported amount. So if we can just have an update by email report, that would be appreciated.
okay, future workshop topics and schedule. There are 2 topics that I know we need to work on. One is all the questions associated with filtration, and the other is the budget. Last year's first workshop on the budget was October 22nd. I was cleaning out my folders the other day and I saw that our first workshop was in October on the budget. I think it must have been before the meeting, we must have had a workshop.
One thing that was requested before I
Yeah.
forget, last night at the sewer trustee meeting, it was requested to get some tentative dates for sewer workshops and possibly some joint workshops.
I'd like to do that too. It's 10:06, and I'm trying to be cognizant of time, and we really need to get to the superintendent and other reports, that it's business that must be conducted with quorum.
How
I've
about-
heard from Dan that he's got some, you
I
know.
gotta leave at 6, yeah.
He has to leave at 6, and he also has problems around scheduling a workshop. Before we leave new business, though, I do wanna say a couple of things that does need everybody to be here for. In the last 2 weeks, I have to say that the business of the board has required very active participation by me as president every single day, many times. I'm happy to volunteer my time. It's been we're doing many things for the first time, and that always involves a lot of learning, and I myself have had some things I needed to learn. I am going to be out of town from September 3rd through September 12th, and I must say I'm happy to report that I'm joining a friend who has rented a place in a part of Canada that has no cell phone or email access. Oh darn. However, and I do want to say that I would like to ask if we don't have a vice president, but in my stead, we do have a very seasoned president here, former president in KC, that if anything comes up where the need for a presidential level engagement is required, that we anoint KC to act in my stead in those days, that Sid has someone he can call, and because of one of the things the president does is the interface with legal counsel. We have needed a lot of support from legal counsel to properly manage a number of first-time tasks here and other questions that have arisen. So I would like to ask if the board would authorize Casey Geiger to act in my stead as a vice chair, vice president from September 3rd through September 12th.
Okay.
Would someone please make that motion?
I move that until we review and define the various new roles, possibly including a vice chair, that the position of past president will act as the president should the current president be absent.
I'll
Is that
second that
in
motion.
general?
That's a standing rule.
Anyway,
I'll second it.
is there discussion?
The rule,
Past president's not a trustee though, then,
yeah, what,
Again, unless you wanna
Yeah.
spend the next 20 minutes on this, we're gonna, hopefully, part of our schedule is to look at this. It's
Our
on my
bylaws
president,
need some
right,
work.
it's in my report for open session that we need to look at this based on our experience. And obviously not having a vice president is a problem.
but she's just asking it for that week.
So again,
He
Separate.
made
I
her
don't
own
wanna
motion.
make, I made the motion, did
We
I
have
get
a
a second?
motion, we have a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. I've not really gone very often, but no email, no cell phone is sounding pretty good right now. A workshop on the questions associated to filtration. I certainly would like to get, our next trustees meeting is April 18th.
Is what?
I'm sorry.
September.
sounds good.
September 18th.
September
I'll second
18th.
that.
Alright, I'll second
Sorry,
that.
I guess I'm getting a
See you in
little
the
tired
spring.
here.
And our
It's
October
September
one.
18th, and and Tiz is gonna be out of town
Yeah.
at that meeting too, and.
You'll be
Monday-
back though.
I'll be back, but I'm thinking for a workshop, it's hard to envision a September workshop as I look at the calendar. Anyway, the October 16th is our next, but would we be able to, and Sid have already talked with him, is preparing to help us understand with filtration all of the studies that have already been conducted, and I will ask everyone here who is independently, and I know Dan has sometimes found some other information about filtration, we'll bring this to our workshop so that we can learn there's several of us who are relatively new trustees. I myself have not read all the studies. I'm not sure that I ever will read all the studies from cover to cover, but Sid is trained to understand them. I think we all have an opportunity to learn what's in the studies that have already been conducted, and Dan has certainly done more. And this is a topic that we all need to be very well informed about, because it is a public question that's on the table. One has only to listen and read in our community how many people are curious, concerned, interested, and we as trustees need to know more about it. Some of you who've been here longer may already know much more about it. But I'd like to propose September 2nd. Now, I know this is tough around work schedules.
You're already gonna miss two of us unless you're gonna.
You're not back.
That's Labor Day.
September 2nd is Labor Day.
September 2nd.
Is Labor Day.
October 2nd.
There you go.
I'm very sorry. I really am getting
Well, it
tired.
wasn't second, was the day before you're gonna be gone, so I thought, oh, she wants to squeeze that in before you leave.
I
So-
am dedicated,
You know,
but I am not
There-
there.
there
heard
is a-
exactly what you
there is
said.
a
Oh, she's gonna
community
squeeze something else
interest
in.
this, and so I would suggest that we do it October 2nd, and that we establish until we change it, that our workshops be scheduled for the second Wednesday of a month at 6 o'clock at the district offices, because this is going to be one the public is going to be very interested in.
And I think we should notify the public so that everyone can hear the presentation of the study information. 6 o'clock, Wednesday, October 2nd,
October 9th was my proposal.
October 9th.
The second, I'd like to
Oh, the
establish
second.
a standard, so when you ask me the next one, you know, that if we're going to do multiple workshops, that we do them on the second Wednesday of the month.
Okay,
And ideally, I have to tell you, I didn't put a location here, because I think it needs to move to City Hall where there are bigger spaces and better recording.
Is that middle of the week, another middle of the week? Is
It's
that-
always, I picked Wednesday because it's our regular meeting night. That's the only reason I picked Wednesday.
could we do one and just ask, does Wednesday, October 9th work
I'll come back for it for sure.
at 6?
Yes,
Jason, I know
it's more than 30 days
6:30
out.
better for you?
Yeah, it's just I'm due for training, and they're gonna throw that on my line in October if I'm the early guy to go. If it's in my due month, long story short, I won't
You don't
know.
know till
But
later.
right now I'm open.
Okay, well, we'll try, I mean,
So, what time?
6 is all right.
6 o'clock. All right, and that's,
And I definitely agree with the idea of thinking about another location.
we'll check in other locations. The 9th is a Wednesday, and it's the second Wednesday of October, not
Yeah.
September or April. And we have a chance to learn, and so does anyone else who wants to come, and also ask questions, because if you believe, as I do, that healthy organizations and healthy communities ask questions and seek to learn, then that's what we want to model and be. Dan has to leave. We've got a variety of things we need to do. Financial reports, we absolutely have to do approval of payment of bills.
Or
No, no,
deny.
because I can't stay much longer.
Can we do approval of bills?
Yeah, I move we approve the bills as presented.
Second that.
I would suggest that if we have any questions, that unless they're urgent for your decision-making, that the questions be submitted and answered at our next month's meeting.
I'm good on any discussion on that, and I had a few questions, they've been answered.
Anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
I definitely wanna talk about this addition.
It's
but-
financial report, so
That's
it's.
a
Okay.
financial
We have
report.
to
We're
do
just
that.
Yeah,
paying
it's not
bills
bills,
now.
right.
So with
Gotcha.
the understanding,
Yep,
All in favor
Sorry.
of paying the bills?
with any
Yes.
questions being
With
submitted.
questions,
I won't say no this time, but I'm gonna abstain.
Okay,
he's abstaining.
now that we've learned that that's a no equivalent, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the only reason why I held bond up for a few days or a few hours was because I wanted to know legally that I wasn't responsible for signing something that I think is totally unfair and against MPUC law. So don't hate me for that,
No, no,
please.
We
no,
don't
no,
hate you, we just need a better process.
good,
Okay,
you're finished.
So we did the
You see
approval
that
of
we get-
the payment.
if we could skip financial for a minute, because I would like to let Sid talk to us in his superintendent's
Yeah.
report about what we need to know about the alum treatment and where things stand. we've seen the morning paper,
Maybe I could
obviously, but we've voted on things that need to be voted
we
on
have,
now.
and I see the articles in the paper and the emails you sent, so I'm pretty much up to date on the Elm treatment and the status, including today's newspaper article.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything more, Sid, and
Well,
for people who want to
just to be
hear?
very brief, I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, there was a press release today in the paper. We did suspend the animal treatment. We had a meeting this morning, we continue to collect data. At this point, talking to our consultants and others, we have a few questions to ask. We are not going to continue treatment until some of those questions are answered. Right now, we're probably looking at suspending it through the rest of the month. There were some issues surrounding, lake temperature, lake turnover, and how that might respond to the alum treatment. Some more questions we need to ask some of the consultants we have, but.
So we're not suspending the project. What
No.
I hear you say is the project is going very well, that we're evaluating closely on a daily basis what will be best for us to do, and that based on our successes to date, some questions have come up that we want to answer before we progress.
Right.
What
Is
are
that
those
correct?
questions?
Well-
That's different than suspending or, it gives us a positive, because I see everything you've done as being outstanding, and I thought the public did not see today's newspaper, but everything before that, I thought was really well done.
So tell us more about
Yeah.
the questions that
What was-
arose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there
Because
any other
obviously
questions or any
people
Well,
specific-
talk.
I think, as you know, if you've read the article,
Today's,
article, we have had some low levels of aluminum that are not sinking to the bottom like we thought they would, and it's based upon a number of different things that it's not happening, but some of it has to do with the temperature of the lake. The upper 30 feet is quite warm. As you progress down, it gets colder. That might have something to do with some of the aluminum that's lingering in upper column has not settled out as quickly as we thought it would. Every fall, the lake turns over, and the lake becomes thermally de-stratified. At that time, that's going to be an ideal time, we think, at this time to continue that treatment. That will cause the alum to settle out a little bit better than it has. But that's a question we have of our
Did it
consultant.
get into any of the drinking supply, any of the water?
It has showed up in very low levels. Now that is the part that I wanna make sure that people understand. Aluminum is not a primary drinking water standard MCL. It falls under the secondary drinking water standards that are not regulated. We have not even exceeded the secondary level with the aluminum that we've seen that's got into the distribution system. That's an important thing to note. We have not exceeded any secondary standards. Even if they had, those are all aesthetic issues. So we suspended treatment to just re-monitor the project and continue to monitor those levels. They are going down. We wanna make sure they're down to a level that's even below the secondary detection standard before we start again. So that's where we are.
I've had some people that have noticed that the funny odor's coming back. Has anybody had anybody say that to them?
no, but I read this morning, I think, because I saved it, the whole Gliotrichia appearing in 9 lakes in Maine significant, and we weren't one of the 9, so I was really happy.
Well, no, you might be thinking of Anabina, the blue-green algae types.
With the blue-green, isn't
Yeah.
it? Blue-green is Anabina, not the.
Correct.
Okay.
Gliotrichia we do have Gliotrichia in the lake.
Right,
There's a lot
and
of
I
other
always
lakes
have put
too.
those 2 names, I put in Gliotrichia with the blue-green algae.
Yeah, those are two
Yeah.
separate.
Anyways, the blue-green algae, 9 lakes in Maine, the article was about, and Lake Auburn was not on it, so great job.
Almost every lake in Maine has that in it.
Yeah.
These
but
are
different
everywhere.
varying
I'll
degrees.
try to remember, I saved the article, so I'll send you if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
It's only in your home state or something like that.
We haven't had anybody complain about the same kind of
No,
odor problems?
no.
You haven't had any complaints? Okay.
No, the phosphorus levels, the phosphorus levels in the lake have been good. Our turbidity is still very low, and that project has helped that.
Mary,
Other
have
questions?
we done the minutes from last month yet?
We did, right at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your change, though, you might need to make a motion to change first reading.
I move that the minutes be modified one more time to eliminate the first reading for the superintendent's review process, because at the meeting, I was assured that I didn't need to do that. It's my learning curve. Okay,
Seconded that?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
now, financial report, we do not want to omit that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I made a motion to amend.
Yeah. and
is there a
I think-
second?
I think Casey seconded.
PC did.
Oh,
I
thank
did.
you. We're doing that here. All those in favor? All right, it's a unanimous vote.
No,
She's
opposed.
opposed.
I opposed,
Oh,
because I think that
Oh.
it was with the expectation, so, it's okay. Not, votes that aren't unanimous are actually better quality votes.
I'm glad to hear it.
Okay,
Because it-
financial.
Can I ask you a question about this?
Sure. For your consensus.
Is there a cutoff point in the fall where you have to wait until next year, or is it something that can be done?
That's something we need to figure out, because as it gets colder, we need to know from the chemical supplier whether or not, that chemical can still be applied in colder temperatures. That's one of the things we need to.
And does that kill the
ask.
effectiveness if you don't do it all in one summer?
No, it does not, no.
Might increase the effectiveness, that's what we're trying to find out.
Just see if
It would-
spreading it
well,
out might help?
If your question is, would it decrease the effectiveness of the overall project if we don't do it till next spring, the answer is no. The segments that have been treated, are treated to the extent that they're going to be, and.
Oh, I see.
And the segments we have not done, when we do those, we'll get the same effect as if we've done them.
So there's no cumulative effect of doing it all at the
No.
same-
No, it will not change the overall effectiveness by holding up that we did.
All right, financial reports.
All right.
Please
Revenue.
walk us through it.
Yes.
All brain cells that are still present and accounted for will pay attention.
In anticipation of dinner someday.
We're on track, Casey, we're on track.
Yep, metered revenues, down a little bit. We had a wet spring, we're still billing, we bill in arrears. The last bills that went out were for April, May, and June. So hopefully revenues will pick up a bit once we start getting to the dry season. Jobbing, that reflects the, negative 50,000 there reflects timing. We have not filled out a couple of big jobs that are not complete yet. And expenses are looking good. Payroll, we've been charging a lot of that to capital projects. Healthcare is favorable. And that's about all we got. Any questions on revenue or expenses? Our year-to-date, our cash on hand is, at the end of July, was 579,000. Our year-to-date, excuse me?
When are we gonna run out of cash and need to put a rate increase in?
Yeah, here's the thing I wanted to bring up tonight, this is important. Our latest revenue projection, we do need to put, there are two choices really. We do need to put a rate increase in effect, and I know we've been bringing this up every month. We tweak the numbers slightly every month, but we're looking at one of two things. If we wanna continue, as we're doing now, 1.5 miles of pipe, we will need to put into place a 9% rate increase effective early next year.
When do you have to?
Spring
submit?
2020?
Yes. If we want to, I know we talked about increasing pipe in the past. If we want to increase it from 1.5 miles to 2, we'd be looking at more in the range of a 12% rate increase. And it would probably be wise to make that effective January 1st of next year, either one of those scenarios.
So in 90 days, 120 days?
Yes, so if we are looking to, do one of those two options, it would be good to at the next meeting in September, to be able to have that specifically on the agenda to discuss the finances of doing
Would
that.
we have to vote on it at that meeting?
Yes, that would be preferable to do that at that, in the
I
September
don't see
meeting.
this board having a lot of success at taking an action on
On
the
the
same
first time.
meeting. So I think we should bring it up at the workshop. We have a part of the meeting on the 9th, be a special meeting.
Talking September. You're talking
Oh,
the
so,
third week of
God,
September.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
sorry.
I was-
I am so
Okay.
tired.
So Sid, I'm glad, and you'll notice in my report, I raised this question, because we only have 2.3 months worth of cash on hand to cover expenses. So we need to do something. My question is, and you'll know maybe off the top of your head, I'm interested in getting 3 miles of pipe, so 2 will be, poor Michael with the, but if we have a 50-year plan, we need 3 years and 3, and we're so far behind. We've done a good job, staff should be commended in the last 5 years in particular, but we need to move faster and bigger. So when you look at a rate increase, I didn't, based on our last month's report, thought we'd be looking at second quarter, but I'm up for first, but the number isn't just a 9 or 14% for me. I'd like to know what the difference is between Auburn and Lewiston, and raise it to Lewiston at a minimum. So if they're 15% more than we are, I want to go to Lewiston's rate.
I believe from the last time we did a rate increase in 17, we did a comparison with Lewiston's
Right,
rates.
you did, you got the little
Yeah.
bar, they're over here, and we moved
I
from
need- I
4 to
need-
6.
I need to look at that again. At that time, even after the rate increase, they were still 8% higher than we
Right.
were.
Yeah,
Right,
at least
yeah,
8,
yeah.
because on this. So I want us to look at options, and to include in the September packet, if that's when we're gonna look at them here, to move to at least Lewiston's rate, and if you talk to your colleagues and they're anticipating a rate increase and have any idea what their estimate might be for next
Yep.
year, that we do that, not because that we're going to match Lewiston, but I already know we're gonna get pushback from city councilors, because we got it the last time. And so we might as well look at what we truly need. Andy's always talked about, not borrowing, but pay as we go and know it. Not build up the cash and delete it, so I support that, and this might do that.
If we want to have, for instance, maybe a February 1st rate increase,
I think that's more realistic.
backing up the schedule, I think it would be okay to
Yeah.
approve it in October,
Right.
to be effective February.
Well, we should have a discussion, because
We
again,
need-
I mean, I.
So we could bring it up September,
Right.
we could vote on it October, and then we can start the process of.
Well, have
submitting-
somebody do the analysis for me that
Right.
shows what we're currently doing is
Sure.
better than having increases every other year, because that's what it costs, rather than waiting 3 years and going up 12, 15%, and 3 more years, 12, 15, because that
We can-
number
we
hits
can be
people
prepared to
hard,
present that
but
as-
a
in
regular
September.
increase of 2 or 3%, people understand it, but if they wait 3 years and we get them at 15, that
They
causes
don't
a
see
real
the
problem.
savings of the delay, right.
Absolutely.
But the other part of that, I think, too, is, I remember for our last round, because you did some good job with education and brought a speaker in, so for those of you who knew, you really should try to find that video, because there's a guy talking. I keep waiting to Mike.
Can you send us a link to the video?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to.
Figure out what the.
What is that?
We had the last rate increase.
Yeah.
These two wouldn't have been there for sure, I'm not sure about the, you brought a person in that had evaluated our rates and that, remember he stood in
That
the
was,
corner?
2014,
Yeah.
not 17.
Not to any.
Oh, was that
Okay.
the?
But anyway, the
engineer.
process was
Oh,
very,
oh,
you did a great
okay.
job educating. Please, if somebody could look at that or direct them to there.
Thank you all very
Oh,
much.
right.
I don't recall.
We don't have a video for.
Okay.
We hired a firm to.
Right, but maybe there's some, all I'm suggesting is to get these people up to here, because that was a very informative, how rates are set. Because the other question that Greg asked a year or so ago is, if I understood correctly, we have the ability to raise some kind of percentage every year without jumping through the.
Yeah,
hoops.
that's the cap, that's
You know
a
what I'm
little
talking
more
about.
difficult to,
But you know what I'm talking about.
I
So if we
do,
can
and
look
I've
at
looked
that-
into that, once you get those established, you can increase it every year without going through the
Right.
public well, you have to notify the
Yeah.
public, but you don't have to go through the hearing
Right.
process.
Right.
But that's only based upon the depreciation on your infrastructure that you install.
Right.
It's-
I'm only suggesting that when you do this.
Could I
we
just
put that-
ask, bring it all together, I unlock. The September meeting, which I now have my months clear. clear, September 18th, you're gonna bring us a couple of options with
Yep.
a recommendation. We know that both Andy and KC and Tiz have a lot more experience with some of these questions.
2 miles of pipe.
So we
3
will
miles
look
pipe.
to you.
Or more.
We will look to you for some recommendations. We can anticipate that there may be some questions associated with, I have a thing I forgot to bring about our pipe replacement situation and age of pipes, you know, some of that. You said there's a PUC report that you give, maybe there is some data in that that would be helpful about our pipes so that everybody who is a trustee has an opportunity to learn about it. We will vote in October, and we're headed then for the rate increase in February. Okay.
Yeah, we'll tentatively vote in October for a rate increase. We don't know that.
We will vote up or down.
Right.
We don't know that we would approve it, but we will have a vote in October. I think this is a point where we really have to keep track of the core business that we have here, and that is water and pipes.
So if anybody has suggestions, because it is the lack that I was asking about all these things, you guys want them, you don't want to wait till September for us to ask Sid to get that. So my recommendation is anybody who has some questions or concerns or information requests relating to rate increases to send them to you, copy to Sid. Because Sid and Mike have it up here and know where to go get the pieces.
So I will ask trustees to send information or questions to Sid prior to September meeting.
On rate increases.
Sorry, rate increases. Will do. All right, we are headed into the final lap here.
So we get project update from Mike?
Project update, Mike. Highlights from your report.
So, just do the project update stuff, so we're still on Poland Road. We have finished about 5,200 feet of that. We have about 1,600 feet left. Should put us near our goal for the 1.5 miles. We aren't laying pipe right now, we're gonna resume on Monday, just due to scheduling around businesses, Hammond Lumber to be one. We have to do a scheduled shutdown this Sunday when it's a slow business day for them to get them onto a temporary service so that next week we can replace the water main. So fully expecting in a couple weeks after we start that on Monday, we should have all the main replaced, another week for testing and certification of the new main, and then turn that on, get all the services hooked up, and that project will be wrapped up hopefully by the time we meet the next time.
I was gonna say, before you
Oh.
leave tonight, just remind me to see me, because
Yep.
I won't be here and I wanna take care of the 1.5 miles sign.
Oh, okay. So that's the project update. The rest of the stuff in water is, some, other stuff you're pretty well aware of, so.
Thank you.
And I think once we're done with that Poland project, that is gonna give us our 1.5 miles. Mike and I have been reevaluating exactly where to go next. We think, given our cash flow, we've hit our 1.5 miles. There's one project we might do, but that's gonna all depend on timing of the year we have left. But we're not gonna be taking on another big capital, pipe replacement project this fall, especially given the fact that we need to increase the rate to put in more pipe. I think we're gonna take a break from that.
Well,
Pipes are crucial, that's our core business.
Right, and I was gonna say, it sounds really nice for you to do, but very honestly, we need to come up with a different solution. If you guys can do pipe and that, go for it, it's my answer, because that's our core business, and you guys have done a great job.
Just so you're aware, one project we might do, depending on timing, is on Winter Street. There was an 8-inch cast iron main that before that was reconstructed 6 years ago. We had put in water services to be able to tap over to an adjacent transmission main. We might tackle that project depending on timing, and that would eliminate 1,000, maybe a couple thousand feet of the existing 8-inch cast iron, so that we could add that realistically to the total. But we're not sure if we're gonna be able to tackle that this fall or not, but that would be the one we do if we do it.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
Is there any public comment or trustee comment?
I submitted
Thank
mine
you
in
for
writing.
allowing me to sit in.
We hope you'll come back. I put my comments in a written report, knowing the lateness of the hour.
Tiz, we will miss you.
Thank you.
We'll be gone for a number of weeks.
Yeah, I will. I
The
think
good
I'm
fortune
gonna.
of a southern state and.
No, I don't know, is Missouri considered south? I guess in those rules it is.
Well, we'll be glad to see you back. All those in favor of adjourning?
we have a motion and a second?
I seconded her.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, at some point, could I get a copy of
Thanks,
this
Sid.
video?
Thanks.
I'll get it on to one tomorrow.
Casey.